On this first Sunday of Advent, I've entitled my thoughts, Hope Restored, and we'll be looking at a well-known prophecy from Isaiah 11. Hope is one of the most powerful emotions in life. Is there anything more motivating than hope discovered? Is there anything more life-diminishing than hope lost? Hope glints in the eye of every child as they anticipate the promise of Christmas gifts. On the other hand, the images coming out of war-torn regions and drought-stricken areas reveal the forlorn faces of people for whom hope has become a distant dream. So often in life, when devastating events happen, our first question is to ask if there is any hope. There's a lifetime of difference between hearing there's no more hope or being told that there's still hope. In those tense moments, nothing is more invigorating than knowing that hope is assured. As Romans 5 verse 5 says, hope does not disappoint. On this first Sunday of Advent, as we look at Isaiah's message, we are encouraged with the thought that the passage of lost hope offers to become the doorway to discovering new hope. The people of Isaiah's time knew all about the loss of hope. There had been a time long previous when Israel was a dominant world power under the leadership of King David, the son of Jesse. 300 years later, the monarchy that had been so promising was in shambles. King David's own grandsons had brought about a division of the kingdom between northern Palestine, called Israel, and the south, called Judah, which included the city of Jerusalem. By the time of Isaiah's writing toward the end of the 8th century prior to Jesus, the northern kingdom of Israel was in the process of being conquered by the Assyrian Empire, and while the southern kingdom of Judah continued to survive, the wicked unbelief of the present King Ahaz was a clear indication that the monarchy named after King David was doomed. But was hope forever lost, or was hope still a possibility? Notice the imagery. Pay close attention to this imagery connected to the restoration of hope that is found in Isaiah 11, 1-10. This is what it says. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse, Jesse being the father of King David. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might, the Spirit of the knowledge and fear of the Lord, and he will delight in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what he sees with his eyes, or decide by what he hears with his ears, but with righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give decisions for the poor of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Righteousness will be his belt, and faithfulness the sash around his waist. The wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together. And a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear, their young will lie down together, and the lions will eat straw like the ox. The infant will play near the cobra's den, and the young child will put its hand into the viper's nest. They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as waters cover the sea. In that day, the root of Jesse will stand as a banner for the peoples. The nations will rally to him, and his resting place will be glorious. These beautiful words from the prophet Isaiah are filled with images which cannot fail to ignite hope. There's the promise of a new branch that will bear fruit. There's the hope of a righteous judge who will be fair. There's the inviting images of wild and domestic animals living at peace with each other, of a wolf and a lamb living together, and of a young child safely playing among venomous snakes. It's the promise of a time when the whole earth will live in harmony with God. But did you notice the reference to a stump? According to the first line, the once mighty kingdom had been reduced to a stump. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse, Isaiah wrote. A stump is a disheartening symbol of a lost hope. A stump tells a story of a past which is no longer true. There is an unavoidable sadness in seeing only stumps where once mighty trees soared toward the heavens. A few years ago, after a vicious windstorm tore through the Baker's Narrows area, we helped clean up our good friend Inge's yard. He was no longer with us, but I knew he would have grieved the loss of old growth trees that went down in the storm and whose only legacy was broken stumps. The yard he had loved no longer looked the same. And yet it is precisely the hopeless image of a stump which is the starting place for Isaiah's offer of hope. Is it possible that renewed hope can burst forth from a stump? Is it possible that hope can be restored when our own lives feel chopped down to a stump? Well, the hope expressed in Isaiah's vision is central to what we celebrate at Christmas. Through Jesus, God promises to restore hope where hope had been reduced to a stump. For anyone who feels as if their life has become a mere stump, Isaiah paints a picture of what the restoration of hope looks like. Isaiah recognized that hope requires understanding. Isaiah described the new branch bursting from the hopeless stump this way: the Spirit of the Lord will rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding. If you've ever said, "No one understands me," or "If they understood me, they'd treat me differently," then you know how critical being understood is to having hope. Life feels hopeless when it seems no one understands. The funny thing is that being understood by itself does not necessarily change our circumstances, but it changes how we feel about those same circumstances. When someone understands our loss of hope, even if they can't offer any real solution, hope begins to feel possible. No wonder the promise of one upon whom rests the Spirit of wisdom and understanding sounds so hopeful. Isaiah further reminds us that hope looks past negative first impressions. He will not judge by what he sees with his hands, Isaiah wrote. We all know the saying that you only have one chance to give a good first impression. And maybe you know what it's like to have had hope built up in anticipation of a choice job interview, or the possibility of a promising friendship, or an experience at a large social event where you didn't know anybody, only to have that promising hope shattered because you felt you left a poor first impression. For hope to survive, it needs second chances. More likely, it needs third and fourth chances. Isaiah would want us to know that God's mind is not made up based on first impressions. If God did base his mind on first impressions, we'd end up being abandoned stumps without hope. Fortunately, Isaiah prophesied that Jesus would not judge on first impressions, but would judge in favor of the needy and the poor. Too often it seems as if our world judges in favor of the privileged, which is why it's so hopeful that the promised Messiah would judge in favor of the underprivileged. Hope depends on knowing someone is in our corner, even when it's our own fault for the mess we've made. Finally, Isaiah illustrated how hope overcomes fear. The wolf will lie down with the lamb, he wrote among various images. And these images which Isaiah depicted look both inviting and impossible. They remind me of the foolish desire I once had to wrap my arms around the cuddly-looking black bear I encountered on a morning jog. Isaiah's images are sometimes connected with what's known as the coming millennial kingdom. But if we see them only as some future utopia, they have no meaning for us now. Isaiah anticipated changes that would come because of a new monarchy established by the Messiah, whom we now know as Jesus. Lambs will not normally survive long with wolves, nor goats with leopards, nor calves with lions. Bears don't graze with cows. Lions prefer live meat to straw, and children don't play with poisonous snakes. These images remind us of the fear that's built into our world. Despite our flight or fight tendencies, or instinctive reaction in the face of fear can paralyze us into inactivity. We become like the rabbit who freezes in the vain hope that the wolf won't see it. And yet Isaiah was bold to say, "They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord." Hope declaws the power fear has over us. And here's where we encounter a problem. It's easy to see how powerful hope is in our lives, but hope is often not something that's easily switched on. If we're only consumed with gaining hope for ourselves, we can be in danger of not finding it. This is where Isaiah's metaphor of the branch extending from the stump becomes critical. The branch growing from the stump reminds us that hope is restored as it extends outward. Hope is not likely to be found if we are inwardly focused on our own losses. Just as God extends the possibility of hope to us through the message of Jesus, we are most likely to find our hope restored as we inspire hope in others. As we seek to understand others, we may discover that we are ourselves understood. As we look beyond the failures of others, we may discover fresh opportunities for ourselves. As we find ways to diminish the fear others experience, we may find our own fears fading. In other words, we may discover that we will be much more successful at creating hope than finding hope. At least, that's what we celebrate at Advent. God created the possibility for hope where it was thought that only a stump remained. There are far too few times in my life when I have done exactly the right thing. But one of the times I did was back when our church helped host a Syrian refugee family. Shortly before they left Flin Flon, we brought the family to our house to eat. In many ways, we didn't understand them, nor they us. Beyond the language and cultural barriers, they had lost family members due to bombings. How could we possibly understand the stump that remained of their lives? As we were about to eat, I explained to them that we had the custom of thanking God before we ate. They assured me that they did the same, and so on an impulse, I asked if one of them would like to pray in their own language the way they were used to. They seemed surprised, but one of the sons proceeded to pray. And even though I couldn't understand the words, it nevertheless felt familiar. In that moment, a barrier melted, and our guests visibly relaxed. In an unexpected turn after we'd eaten, they shared some songs of their faith, and my wife Faith sang some songs of our faith. Through extending understanding to each other, together we gained a renewed hope. During this Advent, may we find that our hope is restored as we seek to inspire hope in others.